staying in a state of curiosity about our experience. That's one of the highest states of being, actually, is curiosity, because when in a state of curiosity, you're completely open to understanding. If you think you know anything, you've stopped the process of learning and expanding your consciousness.
Hello, happy people, and welcome to the first episode of the Happy Curator podcast. Today, my special guest is Heather Rusk. Heather is a mentor who supports practitioners, coaches, and healers to become more conscious in their work. Her own journey of healing started 25 years ago when Heather had a chronic degenerative condition and she wanted to claim her life back by healing herself from the inside out. With the world being on hold at the moment, it's important that we understand how we have ended up here and the lessons that need to be learned from this experience. Mother Nature has forced us to press the pause button and think about our actions towards her. It's time to reassess our way of thinking and living. I asked Heather to join me for an enlightened, somehow mind-bending conversation on humanity and the role we play on planet Earth. Hi, Heather. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent.
With all of this, I'm still very good. Can you explain to our listeners what it is exactly that you do?
Well, I mentor professionals to support them to bring more conscious awareness into their business and into their lives. What I find is that people are longing for a depth that they've been missing in this world. And sometimes they just need a little nudge here and there. And the work I do is really fluid. It depends on where each person is and what they need. Does that make sense?
It does. So with everything that is going on at the moment, in the space of a month, the world as we know it has changed. For some of us, it's a very positive thing that things are finally changing. For others, they're scared, which we can understand. So how are you feeling about everything that is going on planet Earth these days?
Well, on a personal level and energetic, I'm quite different than most people in that my first level of perception is usually energetic and what's going on energetically, and then my physical sense and experience kind of comes in after that. So energetically, this actually feels like quite a clearing time for me. There's a level of quiet, and it feels like it's a pause on the earth right now that I have never experienced ever in my life. And it, for me, is quite a sense of relief, like an inner cellular sense of relief almost.
Yeah, everything is quiet. It's very still. And I've been quite shocked about it because, well, for me and for you, we work from home. So in a way, the fact that we're locked down, it's not much different to our everyday life, except that we're not seeing people, well, apart from being afar. But from some people, it's very disconcerting because suddenly they're stuck home. They don't know what to do. They've got to deal with all of that. But I've been thinking and talked with a few people that it's the best thing that can happen for planet Earth with everything that's been going on for the last 100 years that we've basically, as human beings, since we've basically becoming, doing industries and all of that, polluted and treated the animals very badly. I think that planet Earth is just saying, whoa, okay, I'm done here. I need a little break.
Right. It is interesting, isn't it? How this thing that externally has people quite fearful and nervous. And also, people are concerned about being able to pay their rent and buy food and that sort of thing. And at the same time, there's this hum underneath of the earth, saying, thank goodness. We needed this so much. And I also think that it's highlighting for people that there are so many in their community that are that close to poverty. We really need to wake up on many, many levels and see what's going on around us. That's really, for me, one of the themes.
Yes, and basically the people that are saving us, and I've been saying that for a while now, are not the billionaires and the hedge funds and the private equities. It's the frontline people, the healthcare workers, people that work in supermarkets, people that drive trucks. They're all the ones that are keeping us going. And
right, the farmers.
The farmers, and
Yeah.
I don't know in Canada, but here, in the UK, people are starting to realize, well, all these people that normally come to pick the fruits and the veggies, well, people can't move anymore, so we're probably not going to have them. So what's going to happen to the food chain? And when you think
Right.
about it, we've been for so long abusing the soil and relying on other people to feed us that we've been completely disconnected with the earth. And it explains so much on so many levels. We were talking earlier about the gut. And what we're realizing is that people are not getting the nutrition that they're supposed to be getting. They're relying on fast food, which once in a while is fine. But when you eat it 24/7, it's not the best for your health, and it creates so many issues. And yesterday I was reading, apparently there's this study coming out of China, that a lot of the people, actually most of the people that have passed away, had issues with their gut and were not taking fiber in.
That's interesting. And I agree. Another level to look at that is our farming practices, how disconnected they are, how take parts of the earth that were never, ever intended to be used for agriculture, and we completely remove the skin of the earth, which is a really important element. And then we start digging and we start putting on synthetic fertilizers, and we put on pesticides and herbicides so that we can stop the things from happening that are designed into the earth to repair herself when she's broken. When her skin breaks, there is a process for repair, and we stop that process and we put things in that were never meant to be there, and then we call that food and we call that agriculture. And it's just really, really misaligned, and it's damaging to the earth, and it does not create food that sustains our health or our energetic health.
A lot of people have got very low energy because they're not feeding themselves properly.
Right. Because there actually is not a lot of nutrition in the food, because it's not a sustainable system. And I don't mean, the commonly recognized term sustainable. I mean a sustainable system that is actually aligned with the way the earth is meant to function. Because the earth will provide humans with as much food, with as much nutrition as the humans need, but the humans can't create their own idea of that. If you think of the intelligence of plant life and the intelligence of the earth and the intelligence of a universally created earth, and then you have a human's brain thinking, hey, we can make this better. It just doesn't work that way. The human, this little bit of mushy gray matter in our skull, does not have the capacity to create a truly sustainable and aligned system of food production for this planet. But the universe does. One of the themes I've had this year in my work is let nature inform the practice, which means stop looking inside the human brain and how humans can just manipulate and change and twist around their thoughts to, hey, I got a new and better idea, to look at nature. This is actually the greatest resource and form of wisdom that we have. So look at it, see how it works, and then create what is actually a sustainable system and sustainable practices out of that, because that's how we can see the universal intelligence in physical form.
Yes, and also what I've noticed when it comes to growing food, when you look, when people have got their little plot and, they want to grow their own veggies, the plots that I've noticed that thrive the most are the plots that basically are completely unruled. They've got a bit of tomato here, they've got a bit of cucumber, and because it's what I call the wild vegetable garden, because everything is working together. So instead of planting your tomatoes, just by themselves, but if we put the biodiversity, because we are biodiversity, and if you put it all together and you let nature deal with it, suddenly your tomatoes are amazing. Yeah. And they're tasty. Because that's the thing. Food doesn't taste like food. Like I said to you before the podcast, 15 years ago, I went organic and everybody thought I was mad at the time. But I was like, a carrot tastes like a carrot. They're like, but so I would have a normal carrot, well, non-organic, and another one. I would say, taste, which one do you prefer? And 100% of the time, they go like, well, this one. I said, well, that's not organic. It tastes like a carrot. It tastes like a carrot from your childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was raised organic. And I remember when I left home and started shopping on my own for my own food. And I was shocked. Like I kept thinking, oh, I need to find the better tomatoes. But no, store-bought tomatoes just taste like store-bought tomatoes. They are not the same thing as something that is grown at home with proper nutrition, compost in the soil, food, the combinations, the relationships. I think the garden is a great metaphor, although, it is a metaphor, but it's also not a metaphor. We're stronger and we're more aligned when we have our interactions and our relationships with things that feed us or bring us into more strength and alignment, right? So whenever you do companion planting, for example, or don't obsess about the lines, just allow the plants to be the plants rather than, the idea of what is order in a garden. Order doesn't bring nutrition. Order is pleasing to the eye to some, but that's about it.
That's the thing. Order equals, for me, control.
Yeah, exactly.
And control for me is scary. Any kind of control. That try to control, yourself to not eat a chocolate, fair enough. But they try to control nature, that you control other people. This controlling nature is, I think, what is starting to get us in trouble, basically.
It is. That's exactly it. And that's exactly what I described as the human brain versus looking at the universal consciousness and information that is present for us everywhere if we just look. So there's no control in nature, and it thrives if it's left alone.
And it's true. I remember this from a few years ago. They did a documentary. I think it was the BBC that did that. It was called Yellowstone, and they did Yellowstone at different time of the year. They were filming, and basically they were showing on how they started to reintegrate certain animals. And what happened? For some reason, they never thought that would happen, but suddenly everything started to be controlled by nature, and everything started, the biodiversity enabled so many different things. Some animals came back and the river started to be protected. So I think at the time they should have used that and realized what they were doing, because by unplucking all these trees, these plants, and we've had so many rivers burst out of their banks this year when we had all those storms. But all of that is because to poor management of the rivers. They've tried to control the rivers, and boom, everybody's being flooded. Well, in my little village, suddenly there was water everywhere. And I think the more you try to control nature, the more nature will start to rebel. And we are at a point where nature is just saying, enough, I've had it. I'm just going to throw you a virus, and like that, I'm going to start breathing. You're going to deal with that, and I'm just going to take a break. Pollution is down, and it's the time that we've been waiting for. And yes, some people are dying, and for some people it's very hard, because they're losing their loved ones, and they've got to they don't understand what's going on. But all of this is for us to learn something from it. I believe that from all of this is going to come a lot of good.
Yeah, it's always difficult to lose someone you love. That's never easy. There are different degrees. Everyone has their own experience, but it's rarely easy to lose someone you love. So for sure that is going on here, but on other levels, and for those who aren't losing loved ones, it is a big message. Even for those who are losing their loved ones, it really is a big message for everybody that, look what happens when we stop.
Yeah.
There are a lot of signs, and nature is quite out of balance right now. But it's a really great message and reset for us to learn by.
That's the thing. There are a lot of lessons in everything that's happening at the moment. We're being shown that our food system doesn't work. We're shown that our human connection doesn't work. We're shown that we've got to stop abusing planet Earth, that we are so disconnected with planet Earth and with each other. We might have phones. We are connected in that sense. And in a way, thank God it's not 1940s. We can still talk to each other, do podcasts, be on social media, have a laugh, because humor is the best way to deal with this, and people go, oh, I should be laughing about this. Well, yeah, actually you should, because that's how we deal with things, especially the British. But all of this is showing us this disconnect with our politics, with our economy, with all the issues that we have, with people not having the means to feed themselves, their family, because you have so many countries. In the UK, it's a thing that has been bugging me for at least the last 5 years since I've been back, actually, is that we are supposed to be a first world country, but we've got third world problems. Children are not eating. And I've seen that in the US and Canada is exactly the same. We have children that are not eating. If they're not at school, they're not getting a hot meal. How can we be this economy and not feed our own children?
Yeah, what a good question.
And for me, that is a horror story, if I'm honest, because we've got to change this. We can't keep going on like this.
Right. Yeah. And so when I look at that as a problem, the solution, to me, there's only one solution, and people need to start looking and seeing what's actually here and what our governments are saying and who our government is. What the heck? Who are these people? And what is their agenda? How can we have this as a system? And I also think that a big part of it is that we need a totally different type of governance. We have a system that functions on appearances. That's all it has to be. You just have to appear to everyone to be this awesome politician. And people, if you say the right things, people don't have that inner compass saying, actually, this is wrong, right? On a deep level. They have a compass saying, this doesn't fit what I've been told all along, but they don't have enough of a connection inside, deep inside their heart or their gut, saying this is actually wrong. It's wrong on a fundamental level. And none of these politicians actually are going to solve any of our problems because they're not even paying attention at that level. So it's not on their agenda and it's not on their list of things to do to actually create solutions. I truly believe this is a time where regular people are going to start stepping up and showing the wisdom and intelligence, like true intelligence. I don't mean mental intelligence, IQ. I mean people who can deeply connect in themselves and connect with universal intelligence or planetary intelligence, whatever it is, beyond the human brain, and come up with solutions for this time, because we're so deep in the muck and mire of these societies that we live in. There are no more solutions at this level. That's kind of where we are. We have looked in every little corner and modified ideas over and over and over and over, and discovered that none of those are truly solutions. They're just slightly better versions of the same thing that caused the problem. So the only place that we can find solutions, as Einstein has always said, you will never find the solution to your problem at the level the problem was created, because it doesn't exist there. Only the problem exists at the problem level. So we have to get out of the problem and transcend above it. Raise, we can call it raise your vibration. You can, say, take a bird's eye view. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it needs to be from outside of what caused the problem in the first place. That's the only place that we will find solutions for where we are right now.
It's exactly as when people are sick, actually. We're talking about health care, but actually it's not health care, it's disease care.
Right, disease management.
It's disease management, because we're, you have this, so let me put a plaster on it and that's it. But people are not treating the root cause of it and looking at it, because yes, you might have this, but what else is going on? Is there an issue with your gut? What's your house environment?
Yeah.
What's your home environment? There are so many different elements. And I think when you have, physicians that basically are in touch with their emotional intelligence, with their spirituality, and they have this approach that is holistic, that treats you as a whole and what the problem is, then we start getting solutions. But if you just take one side or the other, then it doesn't work, because there's a complete disconnect.
Right, because there's no connection between the root cause, like the actual cause of the problem, and the symptom. The system doesn't have root cause as a part of what they're doing at all. So they're just actually slapping sort of not even remedies, but like you say, Band-Aids on whatever version of Band-Aid that's needed onto a problem. And it's really only covering it up or helping it heal a little. It's still going to come back. You have to address the root cause for there to be true solutions.
And that's the thing. It applies to everything.
Yeah, it does.
And people think it's just about your health. It's not. It's about your environment. It's about our politics. It's about our economy. We've got to start looking at it in a different way, like you say, because otherwise, I don't know where we're going to go. And I'm just hoping, that all the light workers, healers, coaches, the spiritual coaches are all going to come together, and we're going to have this big collective, and with other people coming in along, and being more and more in touch with their inner wisdom, their spirituality, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah. And
come together, because I believe that if we're together, we can solve this. We can find a solution.
Right. Well, that is the solution, though. Coming together is the solution, because that's the interconnectedness. The problem is we don't see that the root cause is connected to the symptom. And so when you bring those two things together, that's when you get healing. But it's the same with people. It's a dynamic of realizing that we are actually totally in this together. And we have to, our inner landscape is only represented, that's all we can create externally. We create our entire external environment and our world based on our inner landscape. So think about that just for a minute. Whatever is going on inside is what you will create in your life, but also in your work. And so if you're a politician, you're going to create whatever's going on inside, outside. If you're a farmer, whatever's going on inside, that's the way you will farm. So the work has to be inner work first, or we will never create the solutions.
So now that we are deep into this, with the world being completely shut down, how can we all come together and work on this and have people, because a lot of us are excited, and saying, oh, finally people are starting to awaken. We need more people to awaken.
We do. And I think it's happening. People are spontaneously waking up right now more than ever. I'm seeing it a lot. I've noticed it even over the time between last fall and right now. There are a significant number of people that I couldn't even talk to about a lot of what I do 6 months ago. And now I can talk to them and they totally get it. So for sure, there has been a shift, and there will continue being shifts like that, because that's just how it works. We have the 100 monkey principle here, as everywhere, and as more people get it, it will catalyze spontaneously in those around them.
Yeah, and there will always be the people that are like, woohoo, this is too woohoo for me. And I'm right. Really? I said, I can understand to a certain level, okay, certain topics, maybe it's too much for you. I know certain times we've had conversations where I've really had to wrap my head around, but it's made me think. And the only thing we can ask from people is be open to whatever information is coming your way and sit on it, meditate on it, whatever you want to call it, think about it. Because when you start opening up, then little things start appearing. And it's true. And because I am so far away, from where you are at the moment. But for me, it's been little things. And with insight, I've realized, that was that. And that was that. And last night I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. And while I was having this conversation, I was having all those haha moments. But what I was telling him was not my brain speaking.
Right. Yeah.
It was coming from my heart, basically. It was what I knew deep down, but I'd never expressed before. And I was like, you still there? Have you run away from this conversation? It's like, no. I said, I'm completely fascinated. Keep talking. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works.
So as you know, I told this podcast was supposed to be something completely different. And somehow it's turning into this conversation about humanity, because we've got to think how we connect deeply with people, our environment, nature, the animals, because we've been treating nature and the animals like crap.
Yeah.
We've completely disrespected them.
Right.
You're not supposed to have 100 cows, in 2 square meters. I'm exaggerating, but or chickens, that's not their life.
No, it's not. And the flip side of that is that we can never do anything externally. Like I said, we can't do anything externally that isn't going on internally. But if you think about what you just said, right? So we disrespect the cattle, for example. That means that we, on some level and in some way, disrespect ourselves in that way. So how do we treat ourselves like that? How do we limit ourselves in that way? It's a version of abuse.
Total abuse.
And so how do we do that to ourselves? Because that's how it gets perpetuated. And I know this may sound a little bit obscure or oblique or conceptual, but it's just something to keep in that state of curiosity that you're talking about, right? To wonder, oh, how might I be doing this to myself? Because it's in our world. A lot of my journey, I've been doing this for a long time, and I couldn't always find people to help me because, right now humanity is going through this evolutionary curve, and it's really increasing. But when I was going through it, there were not that many teachers teaching what I needed to learn. So I had to come up with ways to learn myself, to be my own teacher. And that was one of the things I used to do. If I saw something that bothered me, I would say to myself, okay, how do I do this myself? I know it would not bother me at all because I would be above it if I didn't do it in some way. And so, of course, I'm not a cow in 2 square meters, right? But in some way, the essence of what's happening to the cow is happening to me at an essence level. Does that make sense?
I think you're going to have to explain a tidbit more for our listeners.
Yeah. So really, this has to do with staying in a state of curiosity about our experience. That's one of the highest states of being, actually, is curiosity, because when you're in a state of curiosity, you're completely open to understanding. If you think you know anything, you've stopped the process of learning and expanding your consciousness.
Couldn't agree more.
Right. So the state of curiosity is very, very important. And I don't want to go too far into that other process that I was just talking about, because it is quite complicated, and I think it'll bend too many brains, but which is not where I want to go here. It really has to be heart work, right? Or cellular, or body presence work, because that's where our cells are incredible brains. Every cell is a brain, and it's intelligent, and it has its own unique connection to higher intelligence and higher reality and information. And it nests us inside the planetary grid, inside the galactic grid, inside the universal grid. It isn't just us as a being, it's every cell, it's every organ. Everything is nested like Russian nesting dolls, right? So our cells are nested inside an organ, which is nested inside our body, or even an organ system or a glandular system, let's say, our adrenal glands. So there's an adrenal cell that's nested inside the adrenal gland, and then that's nested inside the endocrine system, and then that's nested inside our physical body, and our body is nested inside a collective of human, that collective consciousness, which is nested inside planetary grid system, which is nested inside a galactic grid system, which is nested inside a universal grid system. And we're designed to access information, intelligent information, like a whole new level of intelligence, to be healthy. Our bodies are designed to renew and rejuvenate on their own as a natural and organic process, self-healing, every cell self-replicating in perfect balance with its connection inside this nesting of universal intelligence.
That at the moment is not happening.
That is not happening. There are barriers to that. And that is the work of this time, is finding our own connection and our own interconnectedness in this system as it was meant to be, not as it is currently functioning. Because it's out of balance right now, and there isn't clear, connected communication because of how deeply individuated we each believe we are. And that's a belief system, right? It's not just a projection. We hold it as a belief system that we're separate from certain races or certain cultures or politicians. We don't want to be anything to do with those guys because they do not know what they're doing, right? You know, or whatever your thing is, or the medical system even, right? We're a part of that.
And that if there's one thing this virus is showing us, is that it doesn't discriminate. Anyone, anywhere on this planet, regardless of if they're poor or super wealthy, will experience this. And I think from some people, especially the very wealthy people, it's a wake-up call. It's not a poor disease like we've had before, or it's a hygiene issue or anything like that. It's everyone. And I think that's why some people are really scared. It's because, like, money is not buying me out of this.
No, it's interesting. It's very leveling, isn't it?
It is. And so I understand people around me panicking. I live in a very wealthy part of the UK, and it's been really interesting to see people's reaction, because suddenly something is thrown at them, and maybe for the first time in their life, they're realizing that money is not going to get me out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere I go on this planet, I will still need to confront this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
I think for some people, it's going to be some very humbling moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that they're going to start realizing that they need to do more for the community and more for the people around them, and that they're part of a system. Yeah. However, they don't want to pay their taxes wherever they are, but you know, everyone needs to come together.
Yeah, it's true. That is an interesting thing that's happening. And I think, you know, on some levels, people are really coming together. You know, Zoom, I think I mean, I can't imagine what has gone on with the world of corporate Zoom, because I mean, I had a Zoom meeting with a friend this week, just a social thing, who, you know, he called me up last week and he said, hey, I'd rather, you know, talk face to face. Can we do a meeting? And I thought, I mean, we don't usually even talk that often. We email a lot and we get together once in a while, but we don't talk on the phone even. And so I had a Zoom meeting with this friend, and you know, it's just very interesting how that's happening. Reconnections and deeper connections and further distanced connections.
That is very true. People, I heard the other day there were a few, you know, journalists on the radio that were explaining on how they were trying to get their mothers or their grandfathers, you know, on Zoom so they could connect. Yeah. And of course the grandparents or the great uncle had heard, no, you shouldn't accept any cookies, you know, because that's dangerous. So like, no, I'm right. Not, but you've got to do that. So they're pulling their hair trying to explain technology from afar, which is never easy. But in a way, people, because we are not socially distanced, we are physically distanced, because in a way we've never been so socially connected. But there is that connection of, oh, I'm on Instagram and I'm looking and lurking at whatever is going on. Right. And there is really that connection where, like, your friend, let's connect, let's talk. Yeah. And I have a couple of people around me who are like, will call me on a regular basis, because we need to know that we're going to be okay, because at the end of the day, you know, we know what's going on, but we're also human, you know, and we want to, part of it is love. Everything comes from love, and the more we're going to give love and freely give it, and I'm not talking about falling in love with someone, I'm just talking about love, being kindness, you know, is underrated. You know, we should use it more. Kindness and gratitude and
consideration, compassion.
Exactly, being empathic, you know, and realizing that we're part of the system, that we're all in this together.
Yeah. And for me, it's interesting because I live in a community where I don't really have many connections, and I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else, and I still don't have many community connections. But through this time, I've actually established more connections with like-minded people than maybe not ever before, but certainly in this phase in my life. So it's interesting that all those like-minded connections are coming, and they're not necessarily local. And it's actually very sustaining for me. It feels really good. And it feels like, more people that are my people, a whole new layer of more people that are my people are showing up.
Yeah. And as a happiness coach, I mentor and coach more women than men, but it doesn't matter the gender. And but the aim is for them, to get over loss, whatever that is, and basically step in their truth, be themselves, authentically themselves. And I actually realized a few months ago, I was like, well, this is what I'm preaching, but I'm actually not 100% true to myself.
Yeah.
And when I started having that realization, a lot of different things started clicking. And this is how I ended up doing these podcasts, because my podcast was supposed to be more linear, talking about general thing about happiness. And suddenly this podcast has become, about light workers and healers and spiritual people,
Yeah.
the bigger agenda. And I'm like, okay, I'm going with the flow, and a lot of people are going to start realizing, whoa, we didn't know she was like that. I said, well, this is who I am. Last night when I was talking to my friend, I was like, who are you? I was like, no, it's good, and because people, like you say, are slowly starting to connect. The ones that don't want to connect will completely shut off. And you and I know, and a lot of other people know this, they will just disappear out of our life.
Yeah. Yeah. Their time will be done.
Their time will be done. And that's the thing. All that I want to come back to is that all those people that are passing away at the moment, they are teaching us a lesson, and their time is done for them also.
Yeah.
They're okay with it.
Yeah.
It might not seem like it.
On some levels, right?
Yeah.
The physical level is a whole other thing, because we have so many beliefs about death being the end, right? The end. And there's nothing else beyond that. And even a lot of people who think, no, I don't believe that. There's so much of those beliefs are subconscious, and so they're buried. But we still have a physiological response to them, a fear response to death, or a fear response to a loved one dying, rather than seeing, actually, this is what was planned all along from a higher level. And I've helped a lot of people transition from physical form, and all of them were ready, even the ones who came to me in an absolute panic. I helped a number of people from 9/11 who didn't realize they were dead. And so they were still very, very connected to their human perception. And I just helped them see the bigger picture. And as soon as they saw the bigger picture, they were like, oh, I get it now. And I didn't need to help them anymore to transition to where they were going. They could then transition themselves. They just needed a shift in perspective.
So how did they find you, or how did you find them?
Well, that's a whole story. Do we want to go there?
We have a few more minutes. Now I'm curious. Curiosity, you see? I always learn things with you, Heather. So if I'm learning, someone else is learning also.
All right. Okay. So 10 days after 9/11, I remember it quite distinctly. I was sleeping and I woke up, and it felt like somebody had grabbed my shoulders and was shaking me. And so I woke up in quite a start. It was really startling. And I could feel this person, and she was shaking me, and she was saying to me, you have to help me. You have to help me. I'm stuck. I'm trapped. You need to tell somebody where I am. So that, I'll say, that was the first time anything like that has ever happened.
I can understand
so,
this.
Yeah. I didn't really know what to do. And I was quite pregnant at the time. I was super tired, and I eventually just went back to sleep. But I woke up early in the morning, and I thought, okay, I can't leave this alone, because I can still feel her, because she knew that I could see her. She knew that she got through to me. So I talked to my husband and I said, I have to do something, because this woman is there. She's alive, but she's trapped. Who can I call? I don't live near New York City. I live in Canada, in a small town in Canada. So, we talked about it. He was like, I don't know. I think this will be a little too much for most people. Yeah, I don't even know how you could find a person. So I thought, okay, I need to take another approach then. So I went and I meditated and I reconnected with her, and I just got in a conversation with her. But what I realized is that she wasn't alive and trapped. She was dead and trapped.
Oh.
She had died, and she wasn't aware, because we have a lot of really physical energetics to our physical body. So when we leave, sometimes people just really exit, and they can leave their body, and there's a process of disconnecting from your body and cells, and if somebody does that peacefully, they usually just they go through the process over 2 or 3 days. And sometimes in a normal situation, they'll even wait for a funeral and be sort of present at the funeral so they can have closure as well. And then they leave, because their time is done. Like, it's just done for them. There's nothing else to do here. But whenever a person dies in a trauma, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they just sort of barely leave, and they're still connected to their body and their cells. And that's what happened to this woman. So I just started connecting with her and communicating with her to help her. She was still very engaged in an emotional state. So I helped her to just calm and relax and find some peace. And then I started kind of systematically going through, okay, what's actually going on here? And what I realized is that she had died, and her physical body was still in rubble. And she had been kind of traveling, trying to find help. So almost the way it came as an image, and she was kind of going from person to person. Imagine if something was happening and you needed help, and you were in a crowd, and you'd like, can you please help me? And no, they can't hear, that person can't hear you. And then, can you please help me? And she'd spent 10 days doing that. And then she found me, and I could hear her. So once I got that whole story, I thought, okay, you just need to go. Your time here is over. I mean, I wasn't saying this to her, because she didn't understand it at that point. So I just got quiet. I grounded myself. I went into my heart. I held the big picture for her, and I intended, and I asked, and I had, Archangel Michael wrap her in archangel energy to help her release this frantic state she was in, so that she could move out of that and get connected with that bigger picture. And she did. She very willingly did, because she wasn't sort of insisting, I'm alive. She was insisting, I need help. So she very quickly, actually within, I would say, less than 5 minutes, was able to transcend all of this chaos that was happening for her and move above it and go, oh, that, right. Okay, thank you. Now I can go. And she literally just went. And so for me, that analogy is kind of what we need to do as humans in this time. We're transitioning into the new earth. And this is our time to get above that chaos and the frenzy of what was actually or has been happening here on a physical level. Because if you just want to look at 9/11 and what physically happened there, it was pretty bad, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was pretty bad. But, who wants that? Who wants to live in that world where stuff like that happens? We need to just transcend as humans, as individuals. We need to get out of that chaos and the frenzy of the world that has 9/11s and coronaviruses. And it's when we get above it and we can get a perspective that's not from within the frenzy, but holds a higher perspective of we actually have a choice here. We can either go back into that, or we can go where we belong, where we always belonged. So let's all just do that instead of the frenzy, the 9/11s and the coronaviruses. Let's just stop.
And that's the thing. I think it's time for us to take responsibility for our actions.
Yeah.
And admit that we've messed up and we need to come with a better way of living, connected with nature and the animals.
Right. And it doesn't have to take a long time.
No.
That's the thing. It's not this giant unwieldy ship that needs 10 miles to stop. It really just takes saying, no, I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to contribute to this anymore. Just like that woman, she had to say, okay, she could have chosen to stay in her frenzy and find somebody who would go chase their tail trying to find someone in New York City to pull her out. But she was totally willing, when given the opportunity, to be that bigger perspective and then say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm out. I'm not doing that anymore. It's not who I am.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest lesson people can get from this podcast, is that we are better than this.
We are better than this. We're better than this. We're more than this. Yeah.
Exactly. Heather, as always, lovely chatting to you.
You too.
And I'm sure we'll get you back soon on it.
Excellent. I'd love to be back.
Yes, please. We have so much more to talk about.
I know. I love talking about this stuff. So anytime.
Me too.
Heather never ceases to amaze me. Her mind-bending thought process is probably the reason that our paths crossed. People come into our lives when we're ready to receive the teachings that they bring. I personally love people challenging my thought process and enabling me to grow as a person. Like she says, when in a state of curiosity, we're completely open to understanding. If we think we know everything, we stop the process of learning. Curiosity is exactly why I do these podcasts and share them with you. If you'd like to find out more about Heather's work, you can find her links in the podcast description. If you feel that I can help you find yourself again, please get in touch. Details on the podcast page. Until next time.